Okay, so the crypto markets have definitely thrown us a curveball today.
Yeah, definitely seeing a significant pullback.
We're looking at the total market cap down, what, about 4.8% to $3.39 trillion.
That's right. And the main driver, it seems, is Bitcoin dipping below that $103,100 support level.
Right, it's hovering around $101,846 now. Looks like a mix of, profit-taking and maybe some wider economic jitters.
I think so. And everyone's got their eyes glued to that $101,600 mark for Bitcoin now.
Yeah, holding above that feels pretty crucial, doesn't it? To keep the bulls happy.
Absolutely. And, this dip also comes right after we got some interesting U.S. economic data.
Indeed. The latest consumer price index, the CPI for April, came in at just 2.3% year over year.
Which is the slowest we've seen since 2021, actually, down from 2.4% in March.
Now, at first glance, you think, okay, lower inflation, that sounds good, right? A win.
Well, it's a bit tricky, isn't it? Because while lower inflation can be good, it can also signal that maybe consumer demand is softening up a bit.
Which could spark those, underlying recession fears people talk about. Less spending, wider impact.
Exactly. And even with that softer inflation number and all the chatter, it really doesn't look like the Federal Reserve is about to jump on interest rate cuts anytime soon.
No, which is exactly what a lot of crypto traders were hoping for, right? Because lower rates generally mean
more liquidity, more risk appetite. It makes people more willing to invest in assets like crypto.
So no immediate relief there, it seems.
Doesn't look like it. And the market's also kind of holding its breath for the U.S. Producer Price Index, the PPI data. That's coming out later today.
Right, 12:30 p.m. UTC. Another piece of the puzzle for the Fed.
Yeah, it could influence their thinking. But honestly, the general consensus, the feeling out there, is that they'll likely keep rates steady.
Which, as we're seeing play out, probably encouraged quite a few people to just lock in profits after Bitcoin's big run past $100K.
Makes sense. Secure those gains.
Okay, so while the overall market's feeling a bit of pressure, our mission today is to sort of zoom in and find some specific altcoins that might actually, hold up or even show some strength in this kind of environment.
Good plan. Where should we start?
Let's kick things off with Ripple, XRP.
Okay, XRP, it's actually been a pretty consistent performer, really since the start of 2025.
And a lot of that seems tied to some positive news flow, doesn't it?
Definitely. The big one was the resolution of that SEC lawsuit, getting the fine reduced to $50 million, and crucially reinforcing that XRP isn't classified as a security.
That's huge. A massive weight off its shoulders, you'd think.
Absolutely. And the positive momentum doesn't really stop there.
Oh, what else is happening?
Well, we've got the launch of CME's XRP futures coming up very soon, May 19th.
Okay, more institutional access.
Exactly. And then next month, there's a key SEC decision looming on a proposed ETF linked to XRP. So potential catalysts stacking up.
Right. Lots to watch there. Now, what about the price action itself? What are the charts telling us?
Well, looking at the daily chart, XRP bounced back quite nicely from that low point in April, around $1.62. And right now, it's trading above both its 50-day and its 100-day moving averages.
Which, for people following the technicals, is generally seen as bullish, right? Crossing those averages.
Generally, yes. It suggests momentum is building, potentially shifting towards an uptrend.
Okay, and I heard whispers about a particular chart pattern forming, something inverse.
Ah, yes. The inverse head and shoulders pattern. It seems to be forming.
Okay, break that down for us. Like a regular head and shoulders, but upside down.
Exactly. So the head, the lowest point, is around that $1.62 mark we mentioned. And the shoulders, the sort of dips on either side, are near the $2 level.
And what does that pattern typically signal to traders?
It's often seen as a classic bottoming pattern, suggesting that a downtrend might be reversing and the price could be preparing for a move upwards.
Interesting. So potentially gearing up for a climb.
Potentially. But, technical patterns aren't guarantees. It's not always a straight line up. We might see a bit of a dip first.
Like back down to test a previous level.
Exactly. It could dip to retest that $2.21 level, which was previous resistance, now acting as potential support.
Ah, the classic break and retest. You hear that a lot. Why is that seen as a strong sign?
Because if the price breaks above a resistance level, then comes back down to test it, and buyers step in at that level.
It confirms it as new support.
Precisely. It shows genuine demand there and reinforces the idea that the upward move could continue. It's considered a strong bullish setup if it holds.
Okay, so if that scenario plays out, if we see that successful retest, where could XRP potentially head?
Well, if the bullish momentum continues, the analysis suggests a possible climb back towards its year-to-date high, That was around $3.40.
Wow, $3.40.
Yeah.
From current levels, that's what, about a 36% increase?
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah.
A pretty decent potential upside if things align.
All right, interesting stuff for XRP. Let's switch gears now. How about TRON, TRX? What's the story there?
Tron's growth has been pretty steady this cycle, too. A big driver for TRX is its expanding role in the stablecoin market.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, Tron actually surpassed Ethereum recently in the total supply of USDT, Tether, hosted on its network.
Really? Surpassed Ethereum. That's significant.
It really is. It solidifies Tron's position as like a key highway for moving stablecoins around, especially important in emerging markets. It's become a major hub for digital dollars.
So it's carved out a really important niche there. Any other factors boosting TRON?
Yeah, we're also seeing more integrations with platforms dealing with real-world assets, which is a growing area. And if you just look at the basic on-chain activity, Tron has consistently shown some of the highest numbers for daily active addresses and transaction counts compared to most other big Layer 1 networks throughout 2025.
So real usage, real activity happening on the network.
Exactly. It speaks to adoption beyond just speculation.
Okay, so let's dive into the TRX price chart. What are we seeing technically?
On the daily chart, TRX had a strong recovery off that $1.21 Sohi support level. It pushed up close to $1.28 just this week.
Okay.
And importantly, it managed to break above the $1.25 resistance level. That was a tough ceiling it had been hitting since way back in January.
Breaking a long-standing resistance like that sounds pretty positive.
It definitely suggests a potential shift in momentum, clearing a significant hurdle.
And what's the current setup looking like?
Right now, TRX is trading inside what technical analysts call an ascending channel. It's kind of moving upwards between two parallel lines. It's currently just below the top edge of that channel.
Okay.
And it's also moved above its 20-day and 50-day exponential moving averages, the EMAs.
Which, like the simple moving averages for XRP, also signal strength.
Generally, yes. Moving above the EMAs often indicates increasing bullish momentum in the short to medium term.
So if TRX can keep this up, maybe break out of the top of that ascending channel, push above $0.28, what's the potential target then?
Well, if we get a clean break above $0.28, the next major target analysts are looking at would likely be around the $1.45 mark.
$0.45, that was its high from last year, wasn't it?
That's right. So if it gets there, that would represent potentially a 66% jump from where it is now.
Wow, another significant potential gain. Okay, last but definitely not least, we have to talk about Dogecoin. DOGE.
Ah, yes. The original meme coin that just keeps going.
It's had quite a run lately, hasn't it? Up over 42% in just the past month, trading around $0.22 as we're recording this.
It really has surged.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the rally seems to be fueled, at least partly, by growing institutional interest, which is kind of ironic for Doge, right?
Yeah, a bit. What kind of institutional interest are we talking about?
Well, you've got Grayscale launching a dedicated Dogecoin trust. That makes it easier for more traditional investors to get exposure.
Okay.
And 21 Shares has partnered with a group called House of Doge to introduce DOGE-based ETPs, exchange-traded products, in global markets.
So more regulated ways for people to invest in Dogecoin. That's a big step towards, I guess, legitimacy.
It definitely signals more mainstream acceptance, yeah. And it's not just about investment products either.
Oh, how do?
There seems to be a real push from the Dogecoin Foundation for more practical, real-world use cases.
Moving beyond the meme.
Exactly. They're collaborating with that same House of Doge group on a project aiming to onboard, get this, 1 million retailers to accept DOGE payment.
1 million? Huh.
Through something called the Dogebox Toolkit. It's an open source payment solution, so it really does suggest the ecosystem is trying to mature, to evolve beyond just being, a fun internet coin.
Okay, fascinating evolution there.
Yeah.
How is all this reflecting on the DOGE price chart?
Well, looking at the daily chart, DOGE managed to break above a pretty key resistance level at 0.242 cents.
0.242 cents. That was a level it struggled with back in March, right?
That's the one. So clearing that is definitely a positive technical signal.
And are there any chart patterns forming for Doge, like we saw with XRP?
Interestingly, yes, but it's a different one. Dogecoin seems to have formed a standard head and shoulders pattern in recent weeks.
Okay, not the inverse one. What's the typical read on a standard head and shoulders?
Now, this is where it gets a bit more nuanced. Unlike the inverse pattern, which is usually bullish, a standard head and shoulders can sometimes signal a reversal of an uptrend. However, depending on the context and other indicators, it can sometimes also act as a continuation pattern within a larger trend. So it's a bit more ambiguous than the inverse version. Needs careful interpretation.
Right, so not quite as clear-cut a signal as the one for XRP, perhaps. What other indicators are looking bullish for Dogecoin, then?
Well, both the MACD indicator and the relative strength index, the RSI, are currently pointing upwards.
Suggesting momentum is still positive?
Generally, yes. The RSI is sitting around 62 right now.
And 62. That means there's still some room to run before it gets into, like, overbought territory.
Exactly. An RSI above 70 is often considered overbought, so 62 suggests there could still be further upside potential before momentum gets exhausted.
Okay, so putting it all together, the institutional interest, the adoption efforts, the resistance break, the momentum indicators, what's the potential upside target folks are looking at for DOGE?
Given all those factors, especially the break above that 0.242 level, a return to its year-to-date high seems plausible if the momentum continues. That high was around 0.436.
0.436, wow. From $0.22, that would be nearly double, like a 93% rally.
Yeah, a potential 93% rally from current levels. Pretty substantial if it plays out.
Okay, so just to quickly recap for everyone listening, we saw the broader crypto market take a bit of a breather today.
Yep, a dip triggered mainly by Bitcoin sliding below that key support, probably some profit-taking involved.
Right, and all this happening amidst some mixed economic signals, the lower CPI, but maybe hinting at weaker demand, the upcoming PPI data, and the general expectation that the Fed's going to stay put on interest rates for now.
Exactly. But despite that wider market pullback, we've zoomed in on three specific altcoins.
XRP.
Benefiting from that SEC clarity and upcoming catalysts like futures and a potential ETF.
Then TRON, TRX.
Really flexing its muscles in the stablecoin space, huge USDT supply, plus strong on-chain activity.
And finally, Dogecoin, DOGE.
Seeing that surge fueled by growing institutional doors opening and real efforts towards practical adoption, trying to become more than just a meme.
All three showing some interesting technical signs, chart patterns, moving averages, momentum indicators that suggest they might have some resilience or even significant growth potential ahead despite the current market mood.
A lot of moving parts for each one.
Definitely. So here's something for you, the listener, to really chew on. Considering all these different forces at play, you've got the macro picture, the Fed, the inflation data, then you've got the micro factors for each coin, the specific news, the technical setups. What particular aspects, maybe of the market analysis or the evolution of these specific cryptocurrencies, will you be focusing on most intently in the coming days and weeks?
Yeah, it's definitely a fascinating landscape out there right now. Lots to keep track of.